I see it in a lot of our businesses where I don't know if it's an ego thing, but you really just have to have no ego when you own your business, because your customers are going to tell you, this is too salty, or these clothes are too tight, or this color you chose is really weird. And you could either say, well, they don't know what they're talking about, or you can change it up to meet the customer's taste. And that kind of iteration is what every successful company does.
Buy Black Podcast, episode 26. Build strong customer relationships through market research with Johnathan Thomas. Welcome to Buy Black, the only podcast dedicated to helping you find, connect with, and support Black-owned businesses. We're on a mission to bring consumers and business owners together to ignite the global Black economy. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you're a Black business owner or a socially conscious consumer, you've joined the right community. Ready? Let's get to work. Hey guys, welcome back, and thank you for joining me for another exciting episode of Buy Black Podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking to a gentleman named Johnathan Thomas. I met Johnathan through a really close friend of mine that I worked with for a long time, and now they work together in basically as a role as an international consultant. It's really cool what he does. But I met with Johnathan, I talked to him, and after the first time we talked, we realized that we have a tendency to get off topic and yet still on topic and just go for hours and hours and hours talking about just business and mentoring and things like that. So we connected once, talked for about 2 to 3 hours on the phone, and then scheduled to connect again and talk on the podcast. But today we actually were able to keep it tight, right on subject. It was a Herculean task, and Johnathan is going to give you guys some incredible information today to help you not only think about new business ideas, and specifically one business that he started that I'm going to let him talk to you about, but also ways to take whatever business you are in and ensure that you are meeting your customers, you're meeting the market exactly where their need is through market research. So this is a guy, he's all about the numbers, he's all about the math, he's all about, what doesn't make dollars doesn't make sense. And he can help you get in that mindset. So before we jump into the show with Johnathan, I wanted to cover just a few new reviews that we have out there. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate the engagement and the fact that you guys are giving the rest of the people out here finding our apps, finding the show on iTunes, a lot of good information to follow. So quickly, I'll jump in to one new review that we have for the app on the iPhone store. And that one says, informative and relevant. This podcast has relevant information from a fellow business person. From the POC point of view, laid out in a beginner-friendly format with extra explanation of business terms. The speaker is always encouraging and responds to contact. I find myself waiting for the next podcast to come out. And that came from ADHENE at Terra Online. And so I think I know who that person is, but I really appreciate you being out there. And yes, like I say in the app, if you download my app either on iPhone or Android, right there's a section for contact. You can call me directly from the app. You can email me directly from the app. You can find the website directly from the app. So it really is, I like to say, my business card. My business card is in your phone. So if you download the Buy Black Podcast app from either one of those stores, you have me. It's just like having my business card. All right, so with that, we also have 2 new reviews for the app on the Android store. So we have one that came in on January 31st from Gnarly. It just says, every new entrepreneur should listen. Thank you very much for that. And then we have a new review just yesterday on the same app. It says, one of the best apps available if you plan on enhancing your lifestyle now or in the future. Hey, thank you for being out there, guys. Also on iTunes, we're up to 13 5-star reviews. For everybody out there listening, I just really appreciate, again, your engagement, you guys joining the community on Facebook. You're leaving these great reviews, and it's just helping more and more people find us. And we're just going to continue to grow that way. So please keep it up. And of course, you guys leave us a great 5-star review. I will be happy to read it on air. And with that, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Let's just jump straight into this great interview with Johnathan Thomas. He has a wealth of knowledge to share. And you know what? I can't wait to listen to it again. So let's jump into it. All right, Johnathan. So thanks for joining me. And like I said before, I'm just going to let you jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on the show. So I'm a kid from the south side of Chicago, born and raised in the hundreds. And then I moved to Gary, to finish out high school. And then from there, graduated valedictorian from high school, went into Indiana University to study, math, economics, and business. Cause I've always loved numbers, and I've always been the guy who aces math tests and could figure out anything with numbers or models or data. From there, at Indiana University, go Hoosiers. I finished with that math and economics degree. Then I went over to U.S. Bank. So I was interning with Inroads, every summer when I was at Indiana, and then went over to U.S. Bank to do finance and accounting for them, do more loan underwriting. Where I lived in Minneapolis for about 4 years. I did that for 4 years, and that's where I got into real estate. So that was about 2010 when all of the housing market was down. I had just gotten my signing bonus from joining the company for a year, and I took advantage of the first-time home buyers credit, took advantage of the FHA 3.5% down, and really found a property that was in North Minneapolis, which some people would call kind of the hood. So ran that for about 7 years. When I left Minneapolis, I went to Northwestern because I wanted to be a professor. So I started in the PhD program there in managerial economics and strategy. So I was in this PhD. I lasted for about a year. I did the master's portion of that. I taught as a professor at Robert Morris University back in Chicago, and then went back to Northwestern for an MBA, for their 1 year accelerated MBA. And from there, finished that MBA program. And now I'm a global business manager, really just a consultant who travels the world as part of this rotational program. But that's me, man. Like jumping around from different companies, different schools, but always doing something different every couple of years, but trying to always keep moving forward.
Yeah. So quick question on that. So you got out of school and you started with U.S. Bank, and you said that you used your initial bonus from them to jumpstart your career in real estate. So talk to me a little bit more about that, because I know a lot of people think real estate is something that's really hard to get into, or you got to have a lot of money up front. How did you parlay a little windfall from your day job to get yourself started in the real estate business?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I was in banking, so I knew a lot about just how to get loans approved. And I was also working for H&R Block on the side on Saturdays, so I knew a lot about the tax law. And I kind of put those two things together. I saw that, real estate was really cheap in 2010. If you got in before 2008, then, you really got hurt. So I could see that just from looking around on like realtor.com, and I don't think LoopNet was out then, but I would have used it. I would just drive around my neighborhood a lot and just look for, I knew I wanted something multifamily. I knew I wanted to get something that it was either duplex or had 4 units. Because you can finance a single family, or you can finance your primary residence as long as it's up to 4 units. It can be more than 4 units. So I knew that I could buy a 4-unit property if I can qualify for it with just my income, just off my income from my banking job. So then I still didn't have a lot of money, but I knew that with the FHA program, which still exists, you can put down as little as 3.5%. So people typically think about, down payments being 20%.
Yeah.
But you can do 3.5%. That impacts you in 3 ways. One, you'll have a higher mortgage because you owe more. So if you're buying a house that's say $100,000 to keep numbers simple, you're only putting down $3,500. So you have a $97,000 mortgage or $96,500. And so that makes your mortgage bigger than like an $80,000 mortgage if you put down 20% or 20K. The other thing is, you typically pay a little higher of an interest rate because you're looked at as more risky when you don't put much down. And third, you pay what's called private mortgage insurance. So anytime you get a mortgage and you own less than 20%, you're going to pay PMI, private mortgage insurance. And it's pretty much just a extra payment on top of your regular mortgage payment to make sure that you don't just walk away from the building when you're just in it. So yeah, I was able to put down 3.5%, and then at the time you can get up to $8,000 from that Obama first-time home buyers credit. So I knew I could qualify for that because I had never bought a home before. I was only 23, and I was underwriting it as my primary residence. And then on top of that, I bought a property that already had tenants in there, so it was already cash flowing. So that kind of took off some of the risk as well, because I knew that day one I would have rent in my pocket, provided the tenants paid rent.
Right. Wow, that's nice though. So, but the key there is, especially for the Obama thing, I remember you had to use that as your primary residence for, I think, was it 3 years?
Yeah, you did. I think it was 3 years. And then if you sell it, then they want to see 3 years of you living there over the last 5 years.
Okay.
And I did that. I mean, I used it as my primary residence. I made sure I put that down on my taxes. That's where I live, and we lived there. My wife and I lived in that property next to the tenants, which he did not like at all. It's nothing like tenants knocking on your door at 2 a.m. when a light bulb goes out for you to think maybe you guys are a little too close.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, you talk about being 23 years old and owning a property where basically your neighbors are paying your mortgage.
Right.
I mean, that's not a bad way to get started, in life in general.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. At the time, though, I was taking on a lot. So I used all of that first-time homebuyers credit. I used the rents and the security deposits and every other bit of cash I had from working at U.S. Bank and from H&R Block. And then I bought another property like 3 months later, another 3-unit.
Okay.
And then I fired the property managers as soon as I got in there, trying to save money. So I'm this full-time landlord and full-time banking analyst and part-time tax preparer, all at the same time.
That's crazy. So if you could go back just to that specific situation with those two properties, if you could go back, what would you change? What would you have done different?
I would have definitely bought the first one, and I wouldn't have bought the second one.
Okay.
Because I knew that I took on too much, and it was like one of the most stressful times of my life. When you have tenants who just don't pay, and you have to, turn these units over. You got to get in there and paint and take out bad furniture and clean out so many refrigerators. I mean, I learned a lot through that process. Mm-hmm. I just took on way more than I should have, because at that point you couldn't tell me that I was moving too fast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're 23, no speed is too fast. So
right.
Would you say the same thing if you had decided to keep the property manager at that second property, or, find a different, maybe better property manager? Would that have changed it for you?
Yeah. So that's the difference between me now and me then, is that I ended up hiring a property manager who managed both of them while I was still around and able to do it.
Okay.
And then I kept him for 3 years after I moved away from Minnesota, and just managed them while I was remote. And that worked out for a while until we sold them.
Okay. And now, when you ended up doing that, when you sold those properties, I'm not going to ask about, actual financials and everything, but
I can tell you that we made out pretty nice.
Okay. Yeah. So
yeah.
it was a good move to start with going and buying that quadruplex. Isn't that what they call it?
Yeah, quadplex.
Yeah, quadplex. So
quadplex.
because this is something that I may have heard this one or two times on another podcast, but it's never sunk in. But listening to you tell it and knowing that we have so many young people, who get out of college and the first thing they do in college is take on tens of thousands of dollars in debt just to get the education, and then get out of college and don't find, that first job that they want, or find a decent job, but they're spending all their money on loans. This is, to me, this is a way to short circuit that whole debt thing. When you got out of school, did you take out any loans while you were in school? And if so, how did you manage that whole process when it came to deciding to invest as opposed to deciding to give your money to the bank?
That's a really good question. So I'm very unique in that I was on a full ride to Indiana when I went, and so they paid for housing, books, tuition, really everything. And then even though I had that, I was still an RA when I was in college. So being an RA paid for my housing and food, and all the money that they would have given me to pay for housing and food just came to my pocket.
Nice.
So I was able to save up while I was there. And I was working like 2 jobs while I was in college. I was a TA, I was tutoring, and like being an RA, like I was always trying to be on a hustle at that point. Cause I was also sending money back home to my parents as well.
Right.
But yeah, so when I came out, I had a little bit of debt, but that was really from, I went and studied abroad in Paris, which was a great use of debt, I think. So I had some loans from like that semester alone, but that was it.
Okay.
And I knocked that out before I bought the property.
Okay. So before you started investing, you made sure that you were essentially debt free.
Yeah, and I don't like using the word debt free.
Essentially, that's why I said essentially.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a lot of focus on people trying to get debt free. And I've used debt for every business I ever touched. So I enjoy debt in the sense that I know how to use it for me. And like the point of me paying that off, like I knew credit scores and underwriting very well. And so, not to get too deep into the numbers, but when you calculate somebody's debt to income, you calculate their income, which is pretty straightforward, and you calculate their monthly payments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the payment on my student loan was like $50 a month because it was so little that was hurting my debt to income. And I think the loan itself was like $3,000. And I thought, oh, if I just pay this off, it makes me look better from a debt to income perspective, even though the loan itself is not really that much.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'm the guy who like tries to figure out the algorithm behind credit scores and then tries to pull the levers to get it to work for me.
Yeah.
So that was kind of behind that decision.
I like that. And taking a note here, we're going to have to have a whole different conversation later on about the proper way to use debt as leverage, and how you can use that in order to build your businesses and build your wealth, rather than just throwing all your money at the bank and then starting from zero and saying I'm debt free with no money in my pocket. So I love that you said that, using debt the proper way, because it's kind of off subject, but I'm going to be talking about that subject next month at an event, and I'm very, very interested in hearing more about it from folks who are in the business. Can help me kind of color the way I bring it to people. So we'll talk later about that. Not in this episode, but offline.
And if you're listening, Joe and I have a habit of getting off topic on things. So we're discovering pretty quickly that we're very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. So staying on topic here, let's move forward into, the other entrepreneurial things that you've done since then, because I know a lot of it has to do with real estate and it's led you to the business that we're ultimately going to talk about. But take us on that journey real quick.
Sure. So like I said, I was owning and managing those units, for the 4 years I lived in Minnesota. And even when I went to do the PhD and during the MBA, I still have those properties. And what I found was, I would rent to a lot of low income, a lot of, ex-cons, a lot of people who needed a second chance. And I would see if they would apply to me, and I would look at their backgrounds and they would apply somewhere else. And so I noticed a lot of inefficiencies in, like, if you have a spotty background, or if you have, conviction or possession for marijuana, for example, it can be really hard for you to find which landlord is going to take you. And at the time, you're like applying over and over to different properties. And so I set up a company to try to fix that. And what we ended up doing was helping internationals find housing in the U.S. So really this global housing concept. So I guess before we get into the meat of that, I know I wanted to cover some of the other businesses that I'm either part of or have started. So within real estate, I sold those 2 properties. Mm-hmm. And then I put together a partnership to buy more property here in Chicago, where I am. My heart is really in investing in the south side of Chicago, because it's where I'm from. It needs a lot of help. The city is so segregated, and I see a lot of opportunity. And so this company, Intrepid, that I founded, its whole goal is to bring together capital from really all over the country and pour those resources into the south side to buy up multifamily properties. So we just bought up a 9-unit on the south side on 77th. And we're looking to do another purchase in April. And so that takes over quite a bit of my time. And we also, my wife and I just bought the Cold Stone Creamery, a franchise location in, Evanston, Illinois, right where the Northwestern campus is, where I got my MBA, go Wildcats. So those 2 are, on my plate now. The, running that property, the Cold Stone Creamery ice cream shop, and then setting up a property management company that kind of manages all the properties that we run. And they'll manage some other third-party properties as well.
Okay. Quick question. Intrepid, where do I find that online?
You can't, because there's no reason to.
Okay.
I put it that way. So the Intrepid doesn't exist to have a social following or to really raise public capital. There's a very fine line between a partnership where, mm-hmm. Gerald, if you and I said, hey, let's go and, open a sandwich shop tomorrow. There's a difference between that partnership and then, like, soliciting funds publicly to say, hey guys, come invest in my company. We're gonna try to take lamps we're gonna, launch a lamp production company or something like that.
Yep.
And so I'm very careful about not kind of advertising that. I mean, at this point we have 5 investors, not including me, and it's very much a closed network of partnership.
Got it.
But yeah, like, I communicate with those guys on WhatsApp and GroupMe and via email, but there's no public facing piece of Intrepid.
And so I'm going to guess that a lot of that has to do with legal structures and tax structures and things you can and can't do with the SEC and whatnot. I'm guessing you're the math expert.
Right. Yeah. Like, I would not tell your listeners, hey, go find Intrepid and invest in us.
Yeah.
Or I can't solicit them for any kind of investment. And the only thing that Intrepid might need to do with a social presence is to put up listings for vacant units. But even then, it's still not really worth it, because we use apartments.com, Hotpads, everywhere else you list apartment units. And so having like a social media page for us to build a following is not really worth it. We have 2 employees, so it's not like anybody can do anything for us, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of the things so these conversations, I say it all the time, these conversations are the ones that we don't typically get to have around the dinner table or while we're sitting around watching football, right? It's
right.
These nuanced conversations about, oh, well, you don't want to do this thing because, statute XYZ ABC. A lot of us, including myself, are walking around kind of hoping that we just don't stumble across the wrong side of Uncle Sam. So it's great to get on the phone with somebody like you who's like, oh, hold up, pump the brakes. Here's where this situation is. And I love that our audience gets to listen to that as well. So I'm torn right now between jumping into what the meat of our conversation is going to be and one other piece of what I know is important to you. But I'm going to go with that later, and we're going to jump straight to the meat of the conversation now. You started to go in about your business that started off taking care of kind of hard to rentables and then moved into taking care of international and long distance traveling students. And that I wanted to talk about today because when we first connected, it sounded like an incredible business idea that could be duplicated at different locations around the country, wherever there's a school that has, a lot of transfers, a really popular school for international students or people coming across country who have a hard time finding housing. So I wanted you to kind of explain how you did that, kind of what that business model looks like, and sure. Potentially, what's that word I'm looking for? Inspire somebody out in our audience to look around their area and say, I could do that. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, great. And you're going to have to cut me off at some point because I get pretty excited about this.
Okay.
So when you talk about the unrentables, which is a good way to put it, I was building this company before I went into the MBA, and we hit a lot of roadblocks. That'll be kind of part of the theme here. Hitting roadblocks and kind of bursting through them. And, when I started to put together a platform to help the unrentables find, housing affordably, I realized that I couldn't represent people in real estate, which is what I was doing, or really be involved in real estate transactions, even from leasing, if I wasn't a licensed broker. So I spent about 2.5 months becoming a licensed broker, like self-study, at my friend's coffee table and just like really plowing through this, Illinois broker's exam, to get my license. Did that. And then when I got to the MBA, the Northwestern Kellogg MBA is extremely international. Like 40% of our incoming class for the 1Ys were international students, mainly from India, China, and South America. So I would talk to them, and I would just talk to them about their struggles, and I would tell them about the company I'm starting, trying to help people find housing. And I just got overwhelmed with all the stories of struggle. So I think one of the first lessons that I'll put into the company for people listening is do your market research and just do interviews with people. Because even though you might think you understand, how people eat cupcakes or when they buy cupcakes or what they like in their cupcakes, if you want to start a cupcake company, ask people who like cupcakes. Ask them as if you never heard of a cupcake to describe it for you, which is what I did. And I had these international students I asked them, how do you find housing? I had a hard time finding housing here. From the south side, moving to the north side. Like, how do you find housing if you're coming from India? And they would tell me, one, it's very hard to just know who to trust. And so when you're, if you imagine yourself sitting in the U.S., say you're in Nashville, Tennessee, and you're trying to find an apartment in Paris, just imagine all the struggle you might go through. One of the first is language barrier. So these students would have a tough time if the accents were really thick or the English wasn't that good to talk to a property owner about renting their apartment. The second is time zones. So you have to know the local time zone where you are and kind of be up during their business hours, which might be 3 a.m. where you are, to make those calls to figure it out. And then even after you might find a place online, you talk to the property owner and it sounds good, you can't really see it unless they're going to video chat with you. And most landlords are old school. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to walk around with their iPhone, video chatting you, especially if you're in a high demand rental market like Evanston is in Northwestern, or a lot of these college towns are very competitive. So you have to really think through how we're going to market to these students and employees. So most of our business were people coming over to the U.S. for an MBA or PhD. They stay for 2 years, some 4 years or 5 years. And then they either, depending on how Trump feels today, they either can stay in the country or they have to go back to their own country. But they would talk about, flying over here, 22-hour flight from Dubai or from Europe or wherever you came from. And then you don't have furniture. So imagine, even if you move from Miami to Seattle, like, are you going to try to move your whole couch and bed in a big U-Haul truck over 3 days across the country?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
And that'd be way more than 3 days, too.
Right. So we started to see this whole market that I never even knew existed, of people who move from one place to the other, across the country, whether it's for job or for school mainly, and they don't know the area they're moving to. And typically, if they're moving to Chicago for school, everybody else is too. So that market is pretty competitive, and it's hard for you to have an advantage. So we were the local face for people on the other side of the world or other side of the country, to let them know about the area, because we knew it better than anybody else. Because we were walking the streets every day, talking to landlords every day, looking at listings, going to apartment showings every day. So when you call us and say, hey, I need a 1-bedroom with plenty of bathroom space and a shower for under $1,500, I knew exactly where to put you. And so the majority of that business, taking a step back here, is getting someone who can't physically be at an apartment showing, getting them from knowing they want to move to signing a lease. And that takes a lot of steps.
Yeah.
It's them having trust in you. It's you knowing the market. And if you're a licensed broker, you already know your market pretty well. And then it's that whole negotiation between the landlord and the student or employee to get them to sign the lease together.
Okay. So when you run this business basically as the broker in the middle, obviously you have a student who is going to be making the purchase or signing the lease, and then you have the landlord who is going to be receiving the funds monthly for this lease. And then there's you in the middle. So how does your business model work? Where do you get your revenue from, and what are the basic costs and activities associated with running that business?
Sure. So our first piece of revenue is getting the money up front from the students. And we were charging $250 just to sign up for us, or $249.99 if we put on my salesman hat. And that would kind of bring you on as our client. And for our first client, we kind of offered to him for free because we were young and trying to start out. And that guy told us that he preferred if we charged him. So I was running this while I was in Northwestern, and we had gotten published on the Northwestern blog, as a startup and in the community. And this guy who was, he was accepted into Northwestern already, and he was moving over for work. He was going to do, his job would move him over to the U.S. from Brazil, and he would do the part-time MBA while he was here. He was reading that blog. He saw this article. He saw us and just signed up.
Wow.
But he said, I would prefer if you charge me, because then I can hold you accountable for giving me quality service instead of just doing it for free. And so we did, and that was our first piece of revenue. It was that, and so getting the client to pay you up front for all the legwork you're going to put in, and all your expertise, kind of gets them on the hook. Okay. The second piece of revenue is, as a licensed broker, you charge a placement fee for the tenants you place in the building, which is either somewhere between half a month's rent to a full month's rent. For a 1-year lease. And if you sign a 2-year or a 3-year lease, then you might get a month and a half or 2 months rent. Mm-hmm. So, if you're moving downtown Chicago, 1 bedrooms are going for $2,000. And if you get that downtown Chicago lease for 2 years, because this student from Chile trusts you that this is the best place for them to be with their family, then that's $4,000 that you're making on commission. But again, you have to be a licensed broker to charge that. Right. So you're getting paid from both sides. And then the next piece is, once you have them as a client, they become, they kind of come to you for more things. And so we launched what we called a welcome kit, that really took off in the wintertime. So we started with some exchange students, and these foreign exchange students are a really good market for us because they're only here for like 3 months and they need somewhere to live and they don't want to move or buy things when they get here. Like you don't want to furnish a whole apartment for just 3 months and then leave the stuff or have to sell it.
Right.
Which is what happened. So what we did with them, first we started off with just the welcome kit. And that was things that you would find in your apartment that almost made it feel like a hotel. So that was towels, washcloths, bowls, cups, spoons, silverware, toilet paper, a trash can, some snacks, bottles of water. And we put that package together. It was it came inside of a tote too. So you got a free tote out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That came together because we asked people. We asked people from South Korea and from Australia, hey, when you got off the plane and you came into the U.S. and you got to your empty apartment, what did you wish was in there? And they would tell us all the time, oh, I really wish I had something to eat as soon as I got to that apartment. Because by the time I got in and took a cab to my apartment, everything was closed.
Yeah.
So I would love like a bottle of water, or I even brought over some oatmeal, but I had no bowls or anything to put them in. And so that kind of stuff. Like if you go out and buy a dish set too, you can't really buy a dish set for one. Like that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
So what we did, we got a pretty nice set from Costco, like a 4-person dish set. And then we broke out the box and split them up into 4 different welcome kits.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Each person got like, a charger, a saucer, a bowl, plate, spoons, silverware, everything that they need for one.
Yeah.
And then we saw somebody selling back. They were selling our welcome kit on like Craigslist or Facebook as they were leaving after the quarter was up, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Because that told us, one, about the quality of it, but that they liked it enough that they thought somebody else might want it too after they were leaving.
And then you were telling me before as well, so you started with the welcome kit, and then you graduated to additional things and additional furnishings. So talk to us about, how you got into the business of helping people actually furnish their apartments without really costing yourselves a whole lot of money, because I think that's a great, thought that you guys had and a way to expand the business. Yeah.
So this all came from market research. So I think this point actually came from one of the programs we were in at Northwestern. So a lot of people at Northwestern and other, top schools, they go into consulting. And Gerald, you and I are in consulting as well.
Right.
And so, when you're an undergrad, you need some kind of experience to get into consulting. So a lot of what people would do is sign up for these, consulting clubs where you would really consult on small businesses who couldn't afford, you or I, and our bill rate. But they would get, really smart undergrads who study business and who are under the guidance of, a senior person who kind of guides them on the way, like you do a consultancy. But basically, I got 5 consultants for free for 3 months. And I had them do as much market research as they could.
Wow.
So they interview people on the street. They interviewed their friends and their friends of friends, and they just collected interviews from internationals to say, what's your biggest pain point when you come over here? And the welcome kit was a piece of it, but another piece of it was furniture. I'll probably never forget a girl saying she came over. I think she came from maybe Thailand or Taiwan. I really forget. But she moved over, and the first night she got to her apartment, she slept on her laundry, because that was the only soft cushion she had in her suitcase.
Wow.
The next day, she, took a Uber, went over to IKEA, bought a bed and a dresser and everything else. But the day she got in, she was tired and she had no way to get over there. So we thought, wouldn't it be nice if all of your furniture was in your apartment before you even moved in? And so we thought about how to acquire this furniture, and we charged the students for this too. So the students, after they signed up for our services and we found them an apartment, we say, hey, you're probably going to need furniture. You already know us and like us. Let's get some more value out of our relationship. We can furnish your whole apartment for you. And so we found, and this is true in any college town you go to, at the end of the year, people are graduating. There's tons of furniture and tons of just I'd say housewares that people are just putting on the street, literally, or just giving away for $10 or free. It's a huge waste from like an eco-friendly perspective, which we saw as a huge opportunity. So, there were tons of people graduating from every program at Northwestern, and I'm sure any program at, the University of Nebraska is going to have the same problem. People are just getting rid of all of this furniture for next to nothing, and we picked it up. So I rented a U-Haul one day, and at this point I had maybe 6 employees working for the startup, and one of the girls, Arisha, who's one of our best employees, she would go through these listings and just call people up and just schedule it. And I told her, hey, if you put it on my schedule, I'll go pick it up. And she just put it in my calendar, and I was driving around the city for a day or two, picking up beds and furniture and, dressers, and put it in a storage unit. Kept it for a few months, and then in that following fall, when the international students came in, it would be there waiting for them, and they could pick it out. And it took, taking pictures of the stuff, putting it on our website, and they can just pick it the same way they would pick something off IKEA.
That's really nice. So they would pick it from, you had your storage unit set up, you go take pictures, they would pick the things they want, and then before they even fly over, y'all would take it to their unit, get it all set up for them, and they walk in like they're at home.
Yeah, they would. And we even used, so a lot of the people who gave us furniture, they would post it somewhere, like on Facebook or whatever. Now it might be OfferUp. We would use those same pictures for our website.
Nice.
So they kind of took out a step of taking a picture. And these students too, a lot of them would tell us, hey, if I don't get this dresser out of here or this desk out of here, by today, then I'm going to be charged by my landlord for not having a clean apartment when I leave.
Yeah. So they were motivated to get that stuff out of there. Yeah.
They were. And we were doing them a favor by picking up their desk for free.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah. A lot of good inventory that way.
I love that story because it's a matter of doing the work of talking to people. I think that's the biggest thing that people miss when it comes to trying to start a business. People have business ideas and they just think it's a good idea to me, so I'm just going to go make it happen. And then when they hit the market and there's nobody who wants it, they're thinking that it's everything except for the fact that nobody wanted it in the first place. And so I love the fact that everything that you built, it came from conversations, observations, and then specifically going out and doing research and finding out what are the pain points that people have. I think that's a great lesson for people who are out there thinking about starting a business. Yes, you want to do something you're passionate about if you can, but unless you have a market, unless you have people who want the thing that you want to sell them or the service that you want to give them, then you don't have a business. And it really is important to take that step back and go out and find out if you can validate that somebody has a pain point that they are willing to pay to have solved with the service that you want to bring or the product that you want to bring. And so I love the way that you explain that process. I think we miss that part of the process a lot. It just goes straight from I have an idea to I'm a millionaire, and all the testing in between we just kind of skim over.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Gerald. I see it in a lot of our businesses where I don't know if it's an ego thing, but you really just have to have no ego when you own your business, because your customers are going to tell you, this is too salty, or these clothes are too tight, or this color you chose is really weird. And you could either say, well, they don't know what they're talking about, or you can change it up to meet the customer's taste. And that kind of iteration is what every successful company does.
Yep.
Iterative improvement. Iterative improvement, yeah. That's it. And I'm fortunate enough to not have an ego in that way, that I love listening to people and hearing their perspective on things that's different from mine, and incorporating that into something valuable.
Yeah, it's a huge boost too when you see people react with this love of the thing that you just put in front of them. Like, this is exactly what I wanted, because you rarely get that the first time out. But once you make the modifications and somebody says that's it, you just you just made that one tiny change that made this the exact thing that I was looking for. I don't know if it's ego, but it definitely gives you that endorphin boost. Like, I want to do this again. So before we move into the last few pieces of this, I wanted to ask you one more question. Running the business, what is the biggest challenge that you run into running a business like this?
I think a business like this needs you to be on 24/7, and you need to really be able to communicate with different cultures really well. And so, on our website, at our peak, we had pictures of everybody who worked for the company. And I noticed pretty quickly that anybody from Latin America would contact my co-founder, Rolando. And anybody who's coming from Africa would contact me. And, women kind of feel more comfortable contacting women. And if you're Chinese, then we talk to other Chinese people. I mean, it's not a racist thing. It's more so people just feel more comfortable with their own, whatever they can define their own to be, whether it's, veteran to veteran. And so it's understanding that the housing process in your home country is going to be different from the housing process here. And it took a while for me to get up to speed on those nuances so that I could know how to explain things to you as as an international that you might not know about. Like one of those examples is lease agreements. How most people now don't even read the lease agreement. It's like the Apple terms and conditions. But in certain countries, like you really do read that thing because the last thing you want to do is violate some law and then you're getting sued in a foreign country. So like that piece of understanding where your customer is and how their country functions and what they even call bedrooms. In India, there's a thing called BHK. Well, you don't see, in the US, you see things listed, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. So it says 3BR, 2BA. And my Indian customers would say, what's that? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. And then I went and looked at their listings in India, and they say BHK, which means, they would say like 5 BHK, which means 5 bedroom, hall, and kitchen. And that's just how they phrase things.
Okay.
And it's that little nuance. If you Google BHK, I'm sure you will find a bunch of Indian housing listings. But you almost have to be able to translate, not just languages. Like I speak English, French, and Spanish, and I try to hire people who also spoke multiple languages, so that kind of builds trust with your client as well. Mm-hmm. But you have to speak their language in the sense of culture and customs of just how expectations are, and you learn so much. To give another quick example, in Germany, you buy your own kitchen. And when I say buy, like when you rent an apartment, there is no kitchen in there. There's just a room with 4 walls. So you bring your refrigerator, your sinks, your flooring, your cabinets, just like when you move an apartment in the US and you bring your couch and your bed. In Germany, you bring your sink.
Wow.
And microwave and stove when you rent an apartment.
That's just wild. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, and they think it's so normal to bring your kitchen with you.
So how does that? Okay, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but how does that work when you got someone coming from Germany to here, and it's like they just flabbergasted that they walk in and everything in the kitchen is there? Yeah.
And you anticipate that. You say, hey, by the way, this is the price, kitchen included.
Nice.
Like, yeah, that little piece, kitchen included, puts them at ease. Because in their mind, they're like, okay, how do I find a kitchen for this place?
Yeah. And you just learn that through working with people and finding out, like, oh, this person was expecting something completely different.
Yeah, they were. And you want to figure that out as soon as possible.
Yeah. I love it.
Customers don't like surprises. Really. At least not bad ones.
Well, I think, it'd be a pretty big surprise. I would say it'd be a pretty big surprise to walk in, and you've got the kitchen sink literally and your stove and your microwave and all of these things, and you go to put them in the kitchen and it's like, why is all this stuff here? Like, why did I just spend all this money? I guess I'll put another kitchen in the bathroom, right? Like, that's a pretty big deal right there.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
So the thing that I skipped earlier, that I knew I wanted to touch on though before we go. So you mentioned your latest acquisition, the Cold Stone Creamery franchise. You know what, y'all? I'm not even cutting that out. Y'all just laugh at me. All right. It is what it is. You know I mess up stuff sometimes. But no, the Cold Stone Creamery franchise. And the reason I wanted to come back to that is because when we talked before, we spent a lot of time talking about mentorship. You kind of touched on it a little bit about how it was that you as a young man were highly focused on finding work and taking care and helping your family, helping out your mom. And the fact that now you're looking for that next generation of up and comers who are motivated to succeed and to help their families out. And you were talking about your Cold Stone Creamery franchise and how you kind of use that as a profit model, but also as a way for you to, you know, find the next Johnathan. So talk to me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So ever since I've been little, I'd say maybe like second or third grade, people have pulled me to the side and say, you know, here, John, here's some extra work. Here's some extra guidance and mentorship, because they just, I don't know, believed in me or thought that I was, you know, a little smarter than the kid next to me or whatever it may be. And I try to keep that, to try to pass that along. And so anytime that I can mentor someone, give them an opportunity that they might not otherwise have, it just gives me joy to know that someone out there could like use something that I have that, you know, cost me nothing. So and even like I grew up, you know, my mom hates when I say poor, but we grew up with struggle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of winters there was no heat and no electric. I remember putting our milk in the snow to keep it cold so it wouldn't go bad because we had no electricity at the time. And I have, I'm the youngest of 8 siblings. And so when I was, you know, coming up and somebody would give me $10 to cut their grass or, you know, $10 to shovel their snow and, you know, maybe teach me a thing or two, I really valued, you know, those opportunities to really show what I was worth and show what I could do. And so now, that I'm in a position to be able to hire people, you know, whether that's working on a property, you know, cutting the grass at one of the properties that I own, shoveling snow, painting a unit, or working at this Cold Stone, I just love taking talent and being able to really, give them a platform to use what they know and show what they do. So there's a young girl, Tiana, now, who works for us at the Cold Stone, and she's shown so much leadership potential from, you know, the month or so that we've owned it. And I keep giving her more and more responsibility, to just make her feel more ownership over the place. And I guess right now, if I could find, you know, a younger version of myself, somebody who's driven, who's interested in business, and who's looking for an opportunity to, you know, get out of working minimum wage, or if they're trying to support their family, that's great. But if they're just trying to be better, launch their own businesses, I'm all for them. So send them my way. If you're out there in Chicago, specifically on the South Side, listening to this, you know, call me up, hit me up, shoot me an email. Let's talk and figure out how I can help you do what you're doing, and also just be investing in your future. I just can't talk enough about how much I love investing in the next generation.
And, you know, I love that, man, because that is what this entire project is all about. You've got folks like you who are out there, a lot of the folks that I've talked to who, you know, start off in a place that it's not a silver spoon, right? And we all know it's not 100% you, right? Because there's probably a lot of times and things that could have happened in your life where things went one way and they could have gone a different way and you'd be in a completely different spot. But through grace and hard work and oftentimes a little bit of fortune and having people around you who kind of pull you to the side and gave you that extra work and that extra counseling, you know, you become the person who can then turn around and who can feed that next generation. And so I love to hear that story, and I love connecting with folks like you who kind of have that heart of, I'm not just making it for myself. Everything that I've learned, it dies with me if I don't teach somebody else how to do the same thing and do it better. So I highly commend you for that, and I appreciate you sharing. Before we close everything out, got one last question for you. I know that the businesses that you're in right now, you're not specifically looking for folks in the audience to come and do business with you or purchase from you or do anything like that. You're coming out here just to share knowledge. Again, you're incredible. Thank you. But what's next for you? What's coming down the line for you, up next? And if anything, what can we do to support you or to support people that you're supporting?
Yeah. So I really appreciate the compliment and, the platform to really talk about things I love. At this point is business and mentorship. And just making the world better. Making the world a better place, to sound as corny as possible. So for me, I'd say for me and my wife, because we're a dynamic duo and every decision I make goes through her. I'm sure she saved my life multiple times in the years that I met her. We're super excited to acquire turnarounds and to acquire businesses that have potential, that are struggling, and they need some management rigor, they need some capital, or they need something that we have to make them better. And with this Cold Stone Creamery, that's exactly it. It was an absentee owner who was pretty involved in the beginning, and then after a while, him and his partner didn't have a lot of time to be there, and a lot of things were neglected. And so now that we're under ownership, we're fixing things. We hired 4 staff already. We're hiring more pretty soon, and we're trying to raise revenues and raise the perception of what's happening. So I think that after we digest this Cold Stone, digest this 9-unit, we'll probably buy another piece of real estate and then look for other opportunities to get involved. I will, through the conversation, I'm thinking about your question of, how can the listeners, help me with something that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I came up with something that's so obvious that I forgot. I'm surprised I hadn't thought about it sooner. So if your listeners want to whip out their phones and go to Google or Yelp, of their choice, and find the Cold Stone Creamery in Evanston, and just, if you can give us a 5-star review and say something nice, that would help us out tremendously. To put that into a little bit of perspective, this store was so bad that it's at a 2.0 on Yelp.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you read through the reviews, and please do, if you want some humor, you can see all the things that are just wrong with it. From not being clean to being out of ice cream all the time, being short-staffed, not being open when they're supposed to, all management issues that are fixed as of today. So we're trying to really turn around that perception, getting that score back up so that people can give us another shot. So right. Yeah, if you can take some time, give us a positive review. You can just talk about the new management and how things have turned around and just wish us the best. That would really help.
That is awesome. Thank you for coming up with one that we can help you out with, because we definitely want to help you with all the knowledge you just dropped with us today. And again, that's the Cold Stone Creamery. Is Evanston a suburb of Chicago?
Yeah, Evanston, Illinois.
Okay.
It's just north. It's the first suburb north you hit when you leave Chicago.
Okay.
It's on the CTA. Yeah.
Spell it for me.
I can put a link in the show notes.
Yeah. So toss me the link. I'll put it in the show notes. Spelled as Evanston.
You got it, man.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So with that, we do have to get to this point where, hey, people can get in contact with you. You were saying if you know other businesses or folks in the Chicago area to reach out to you. So what are the best ways for people to get in contact with you? If you're comfortable giving out a cell, do that. And then your email and socials, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. You can reach me on my cell, 847-293-5708. I'm attached to that thing pretty much all day, all night. But yeah, hit me up, shoot me a text. LinkedIn and Facebook, I check every day. So I'm just Johnathan Thomas on there. I think I'm John Thomas on Facebook. And it's JOHN. Some people kind of screw that up, or they go with JON and then you won't find me. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, and Facebook, and give me a call, shoot me a text. If you're trying to do something positive in the city of Chicago, if you're trying to help us, decrease the violence and get people jobs and get people off the streets so they have something to do and they're not hurting each other so much, so we can turn the perception of our city around, hit me up. There are some really bright, hardworking people here, and I'm proud to be a part of that group of people who just love an area that they came from or they didn't come from, and they want to see it do better.
Love it.
Yeah, love it. I think I might love Chicago more than Kanye.
Man, that's a bold claim. I mean, if he ever finds this podcast, he might be giving you a call.
He might, and my wife will probably argue him down. She would not let me name my child Chicago. But yeah, I just love the city, and happy to be a part of its resurgence, I like to say.
I love it. All right, so one, let's hope that someday Kanye West finds this podcast and says, "Man, this is incredible. I got to listen to all of that and connect with everybody involved." So we can go ahead and hope for that right now. But last thing before we get out of here, I got to ask you the final question from Buy Black Podcast. What is your number one piece of advice for our community?
Yeah. I thought a lot about this because I've heard it on I heard you ask other people. My best piece of advice that I give anybody in entrepreneurship, specifically Black entrepreneurship, is to run the numbers. You need to look at how much revenue you're going to make, how big your market is, what it's going to cost you to provide that good or service, and what the profit is. You got to run your numbers. If you were trying to sell a product, whether it's Vita shoes, whether it's candles, whether it's the school supplies, you got to know what each piece is costing you, what you're selling it for, what your margins are, and how much of those you got to sell to pay your rent and pay your employees and keep the lights on. You got to run your numbers.
That's perfect.
I see people price things too high or too low, or don't pay enough for things. And I mean, I'm a numbers guy, so you got to.
Yeah, I absolutely love that one. So you've listened to some of the episodes. We haven't gotten that answer before, but it is long overdue because you're absolutely right. Business should come down to, a lot of the management side of business should just come down to, is this a good investment or not? Is this a good activity for us to take on or not? And it can't be based on your emotions about it. It's got to be based on whether or not if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
It don't make sense.
I love it.
Exactly right. Yeah, and listeners, hit me up if you need help running the numbers. If you're not sure, run the numbers means. I'm happy to help you. I'm a numbers nerd, so I'll probably talk to you more than you want. But yeah, send me your numbers. We'll crunch them together, and we'll get things figured out.
That is absolutely perfect, man. I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing this. Is nothing less than incredible knowledge with our community. And I know, like I said, we're going to have to connect and we're going to have that talk about the proper way to use debt as leverage as opposed to letting debt use you to buy a bunch of stuff. But that's a whole different ball of worms we'll get into later. As for now, I think we are, look at that, just barely over an hour. That's pretty good. Johnathan, thanks for coming and joining me today, and we are going to catch y'all in the next episode.
Thank you, man. You guys have a great night.
Hey, so you guys just heard a incredible, powerful conversation that I had with Johnathan. And now you know this man is it when it comes to knowledge and information about how to connect with your market, get the information that you need to make sure that you're setting your business up to meet customers' real needs rather than things that you might think are cool or that you might think that the market needs. They will tell you, and he's giving you a lot of tips on how to find that information. So with that, before we get out of here, I just wanted to double back and remind you, as Johnathan just gave us a lot of value in that show, we can help him with his business venture, giving him a lot of value with not a whole lot of work. And that will be to go in to Yelp, go into Google Maps, find his Cold Stone Creamery and give it a positive 5-star review to help them turn around the online image of that store to actually match the reality of what's going on. So in the show notes, if you just scroll down right there in the app or whatever your podcast app is, I'm going to have the links both to his Yelp page and to his Google Maps page. You just take a couple of seconds, click on each one of those links, drop him a 5-star review with a couple of nice words, and that will be all the payment that he needs for coming in and dropping the bombs that he just did on the show. So I really appreciate you guys doing that, helping and supporting another Black entrepreneur. And yeah, that's about it. I will catch you guys in the next episode.